Hello, we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring his philosophy, his disillusionism, and his misalgic theory in particular. Mookie, this theory states that, as the name allows us to understand, misalgia, avoidance of suffering, that we as human beings behave in ways that mostly have to do with our attempt to get rid of suffering, to go away from suffering. We have discussed this, and in different videos you have introduced the different methods we have for dealing with suffering. We have relief, we have avoidance, we have distractions. Is there an ending? Once we alleviate one suffering, do we see the end of suffering, or do we have to keep running always in life?
Well, first of all, let me understand. As animals, as any animals, we are programmed to look for trouble, not to look to go into trouble, but to look for it, to be able to deal with it as soon as possible. And that means that we are really prompted, basically, genetically prompted to look for sources of suffering, sources of pain. And that fact ends up in a situation in which life, as we know it, is like a box of tissues, not a box of chocolates, as some movie said. And you have a suffering here, and then there is another one, and then there is another one, and so forth. So why? Because we look for them. We are sensitive to that suffering. We have a sensibility looking for suffering, because when we are looking for them, we can deal with them. Any animal who is not prepared to stop drinking the water in the well or in the lake when a predator appears will disappear. In fact, probably many species that had that those priorities did not survive. So we live in a life in which we keep on living from one suffering to the next one. Now, it sounds terrible, but what happened is that we only suffer when we are awake. And this is important. Not just not sleeping, yes? Even when we sleepwalk, you remember we spoke about it in previous videos, that we basically, most of the day, almost all the day, we sleepwalk, yes? We go from one habit to the next one. And while we do that, we're not suffering. If we suffer, if a suffering appears, gone. We are awake. That means we are suffering. So we have it is not that all the time we suffer, that all the time that we are awake, okay, we are suffering, yes, and one brings the other one, and so in previous videos we spoke about that we try to tell us a narrative, a story to ourselves, that a life is not running away, is not a flight, is a going towards, yes, and then we spoke about the ethics of it. How we are going, we are all heroes. You know, you remember, you heard about the heroes, that the people who stay at home, they're heroes. Yes, they are now. I mean, the price, the value of a hero is almost nothing at this point of the board game. Yes? Everybody is a hero, so nobody's a hero. Hero is something different. So, but that's the way to distract ourselves from the fact that we, as soon as we open our eyes, and I mean, not literally, but we are out of one of the slumbers, the regular ones, or the sleepwalking kind, yes, the inertial movement, the ones that we move around. As soon as we are, suffering is there. So what we learn that to stay as much as possible in that inertial mode, so not to suffer. And but again, then you are not really there. Yes, you don't even remember what happens when you sleepwalk.
What's happening with the tissue box you describe to explain the nature of suffering during this COVID-19 pandemic, is it stuck? Are we all in the same tissue at the same time? It's a weird situation from this point of view, isn't it?
No, what you just mentioned, are we at the same time? This is what makes now this time very special. Normally, yes, when I'm suffering on something, you're suffering on something else. So we have a division of labor. You deal with my suffering, I deal with yours, and that will be great. Yes, we can help each other in a way. But now we are all in the same, suffering from the same thing. Fear, above all, the same fear of being sick, fear of our family, the life and the health of our family around us, the friends that we have, and the economic, the dire economic situation in which we are going, we are marching on. And that means that also it's very hard to sleepwalk. So we are going to be much more exposed to the tissue box effect of one suffering after the other, without even resting, without being able to zoom out of the whole of all the problems. So this is a very, very specific situation, and it's interesting on one hand, but if we all have the same suffering, yes, we can all feel identified, but on the other hand, we don't have the other guy who can help you in this case.
What will come afterwards when the pandemic is over? What tissues has the box in store for us?
Well, the box and the tissues are not sensitive to COVID, only the color of the tissue, yes, but not the fact that we have a tissue. In fact, it's good for crying. You know, tissues used to be to wipe the tears, yes. But the problem that we'll have is, are we going to be familiar with those sufferings? Let me explain you one thing. When we were speaking about January, okay, or December last year. So all the sufferings, first of all, you could foresee them coming because they already happened. You have experienced how to deal with them. You have the habits how to make them easier. Yes, how can they be solved on the run? Now we're going to a new world. Of course, there are certain things that are going to be. Unemployment is not something new, but the way unemployment is done, but the whole tourism industry and the whole restaurant industry is teetering on the brink of disappearing or of big shape. That never happened. A whole piece, and everywhere. This is the first time all the world have the same suffering basis. We come out from the same, and then I think we will have different issues. But yes, the box is going to stay there. Yes, I wish I had better news. But disillusionism is not. It's not exactly a philosophy that has a lot of good news.
Interesting, nevertheless. We'll carry on in different videos. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.